Finally, a fantastic rom-com is here. I had someone in my comments section when I was doing my best of the year, worst of the year so far video mention A Nice Indian Boy. And it wasn't out here in Australia yet, but I saw it pretty much opening night in a weirdly packed theater, might I say. This is a small budget movie, weirdly packed theater. Every single person in that theater loved it. Hysterical, crying, people were moved. Guys, A Nice Indian Boy is like a great rom-com. I don't know where this came from. The trailer, I'm going to be honest, looked like ass. I thought the trailer looked so bad and strange tonally. And very quickly in this movie, I was lulled into this sense of like, oh, they know what they're doing. On top of that, this movie is genuinely funny. So let's just get into it. The story here, the hook, the setup. All right, so the story follows this guy called Naveen. He's played from the guy that you might know from Deadpool. He was the cab driver, I believe. It's following the story of Naveen, an Indian guy, who meets a man named Jay, who is the nice Indian boy, despite the fact that he's a white guy played by Jonathan Groff. And the whole setup here is that Jonathan Groff's character, Jay, was raised by Indian parents. He was adopted, and that's kind of like the fun little comedic setup here. They play into a lot of this humor, but it's actually like kind of good humor. It's not just cheap jabs. Like, they're kind of earned funny jokes. The big thing I like about this movie is the fact that every single character I feel like I had a really good idea of. I've seen people talk about the fact that they didn't feel much chemistry between Naveen and Jay, and I kind of have to disagree. I think what we actually got here was a really real portrayal of what real people are like. You know, not all of us act like movie stars who are really charismatic all the time and really switched on. And the vibe I got from Naveen, and I feel intentionally so, is that he's very shut off from love. He doesn't have much self-confidence. He doesn't believe he's deserving. He's very kind of sardonic and very nihilistic around the dating scene. He's very picky. You know, you see this in an early scene, a fantastic early scene where he's reflecting on his first hangout or first date with Jay and picking apart everything. And his friend is like, was that bad? Is that really that bad? I think you're looking for things. I don't know about that. Okay, that was bad. It's a great scene. Hysterical, in fact. Like, people were really laughing. And I will acknowledge that maybe I'm so high on this movie because the crowd I saw it with was absolutely eating out of its hand. But I don't know. I think that's a testament to a good movie. I watched Materialists opening night, and I watched everyone kind of get lost by the end of the movie. I think it is a compliment that a movie can like really have the audience with it throughout its runtime. On top of that, this movie is brisk. It absolutely moves. But I think the big compliment I can give this movie is, again, those characterizations. So as I was saying, Naveen is someone who is just really jaded and almost like low-key difficult. He's not the world's most likable main character, but he's endearing enough, and you go on a journey with him. On top of that, this movie has a main character where he'll say things to us, the audience, or he'll say things that you aren't necessarily meant to agree with. There are multiple conflicts he has in the movie where initially you're positioned to be on his side, and then you hear other perspectives and you're like, oh, you know, really well done, particularly with his family. And that's the big thing I love about this movie. Not only do you have a good idea of Naveen and Jay, who also Jay is a fantastically well-realized character and kind of the polar opposite of Naveen, but you have this incredible idea of Naveen's family. I would have watched a whole movie about his sister. His sister is in a marriage. It's set up from the start, and you get the idea that throughout the movie, maybe they're not on the best terms, this marriage between the sister and her husband. First off, great performance from whoever plays the sister, but I would have gladly watched a whole movie about her. I thought she was a completely compelling character, and I also thought the beefs and rivalries that came up, the kind of sibling rivalries that came up between her and Naveen, were earned and well done. That's another thing I loved about this movie. All the conflict and drama was earned. It made sense given what you were seeing. I also like that this movie moved at a brisk pace. It's broken up into 5 chapters. Always love a chaptered movie, by the way. Typically, we get 5 chapters in a movie, so I enjoy being like, all right, we're at chapter 3. We're over the hump. But the thing I like about this movie also is it almost feels like a little like We Live in Time. You miss key information, but in a way that makes this movie a fun kind of mystery to unravel. Does that make any sense? So it'll skip over like, you know, big pieces of their relationship, and you need to kind of be active and catch up with context clues. You know, it'll have multiple month time skips, and you need to like use your brain a little and be like, okay, this has happened and this has happened. Okay, so now they're doing this. And in a way that I found really rewarding and really fun. It's also fun watching watching a movie that explores cultures and dynamics that I'm not particularly familiar with in a really in-depth and well-earned way. This is a movie that's really interested in Indian culture and actually really unpacking it, and I found that also an interesting part of the plot. The plot never felt muddled or confused in its messaging or its tone. I thought it was really well done. Now, I do need to have one disclaimer, all right? And I hate to do it to everyone. I thought this movie had one of the worst romantic love sex scenes, whatever you want to call it, of like all time. All right. And it's barely even a sex scene. All right. So if you're worried about bringing your parents, do not worry. I just thought it was so poorly executed. And I did not want to be the straight white guy in the theater laughing at a gay sex scene. All right. And I wasn't laughing because it was gay, and I wasn't laughing because it was sex. All right. It was really bad, guys. It actually felt like a first take, like maybe they were filming like, oh, okay, intimacy coordinator, is it okay if I touch there? Like, how intense should that be? Is it conveyed properly, or would that be breaching intimacy coordinator issues? And it felt like that's the take they used. Specifically, there's a shot where Jay, Jonathan Groff's character, is sliding his hand towards Naveen's butt, and it's not well done. It's not sensual, but it's also not cute and awkward. It's strange. It feels like aliens imitating what an intimate, steamy moment is. It was a rough sex scene. But aside from that, I have no notes for this movie. I think it's a crowd pleaser. I heard people pouring out at the theater being like, oh, it's just nice to see like a nice movie. And I agree. And the big thing here is, again, every single character I'd gladly watch a show about. I was sad to be leaving this movie. I was sad that this movie was ending when it was ending, because I had such a good time connecting with these characters, going on this journey, watching a love story that I connected with. And again, like, I've heard people complain about Naveen's performance, or thought that he was kind of stiff, or there was no chemistry. I thought that was the point. Even his big romantic gestures towards the end of the movies feel stilted and awkward and not very cool. You know, he does like a bit of a dance at one point, and it's a bit lame and clunky and stiff, but it's like, that would be what that character would be like. Do you get what I mean? He's not going to suddenly turn to a good dancer. And I appreciate the small scale of this story. I also think there are a lot of nice little setups that pay off later. There's an arc around Jay's vaping that I found really interesting. And there are big arcs around the parents as well. These are also really well-defined characters. There's a whole romantic drama going on between the parents and also between the sister and her husband that I found completely compelling and brought tears to my eyes at multiple points. The dad was such a pure soul, and I thought the mum was absolutely hilarious. I love this entire family. I would have gladly spent an entire miniseries with them, and we see so many things get turned into like a cinematic universe. I want the Nice Indian Boy cinematic universe. I loved this family of characters, and I loved how complicated they were, and there were dynamics and arguments I found genuinely kind of unsettling and hard and difficult. So let's get into spoilers. If you've seen this movie, we're going to get into spoiler talk. So 3, 2, 1. Brief intermission while I've got you. Please consider getting a membership to this channel. For the price of a cup of coffee, you get a podcast every 2 weeks where I talk about every single show and movie I've watched in that given fortnight. Also, any books or other media I've engaged in will be mentioned. Thank you so much for considering, and back to the video. Thank you so much for watching, everyone, and have a lovely day. All right, the whole arc around the dad also being harmed for his interest in cooking, you know, getting a scar the same way Jay had a scar for being into art. First off, dark character exploration for both of them. And I just thought it was such a beautiful moment. And then putting dates in the dish and them cooking together, I loved it. I also loved when the mum cracked it at Naveen and was like, you know what? Your dad actually doesn't mind that you're gay. That's not what he's upset about. And you think it is, and it's totally unfair. It's the fact that you left for 6 years, and then all of a sudden you have a husband, and we didn't even know. You know, and I'm like, and on top of that, I like that the script kind of did that to us too. We missed a substantial chunk of their relationship, and then we're caught back up a bit later. Yes, we did see the engagement, but it felt a little like, oh shit. I really, really love that scene, because there were so many conflicts where I was like, oh, am I really on his side for this? Am I meant to be on his side? Or is this meant to be a character study where I think he's a bit flawed? But these moments where you hear it from another lens and you're like, oh, and even the sister, you know, the sister says at one point that she's jealous of the respect they give Naveen. And yeah, it's a dark thought, a challenging thought, but I totally got where she was coming from. She felt like she was pressured into a relationship, essentially an arranged marriage in disguise, whereas because Naveen came out as gay, they were so obsessed with saying the right thing that they were really delicate and gentle to him, and she wished she got a bit of that delicate approach in her love life. And yeah, it's a dark thought to talk about, but I frankly got where she was coming from, and I thought it was also a really sweet moment. Again, I loved the scene he had with his friend. I loved getting into the head of Naveen and seeing how he sees himself and his self-loathing and how that comes out in relationships. And I thought the third act breakup that you always get in these movies was actually really well earned. You completely got where it was coming from. You simultaneously were like, oh mate, why were you vaping in the bathroom? But you also got it. It was set up enough that you got it. You got the sister's frustration. You also kind of understood, yes, why Naveen was so cagey, but also you find out later in the movie that the parents do love him to death. And he has kind of, conflated and exaggerated some of this conflict in his head to a point where it's now come out and exploded what was a good relationship. And the scene where the dad went to the art gallery, I was in tears. Oh my God, just a beautiful movie. And sometimes you need that between all the dark, horrific movies I recommend on this channel. So look, it's not the next big Oscar contender, and some of the music could be better, and some of the framing is really good, and some of it's not the best. The sex scene is clunky. But with those caveats, I think in terms of what this movie was going for, which is a fun rom-com, it absolutely nails it. And I think it's genuinely a must-see movie of the year. All right. I genuinely mean that. I think it's really good. So check out A Nice Indian Boy. Thank you so much for watching, everyone. Brief intermission while I've got you. Please consider getting a membership to this channel. For the price of a cup of coffee, you get a podcast every 2 weeks where I talk about every single show and movie I've watched in that given fortnight. Also, any books or other media I've engaged in will be mentioned. Thank you so much for considering, and back to the video. Thank you so much for watching, everyone, and have a lovely day.